The black void of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Among the distant stars, a massive fleet of alien warships moved in perfect formation. 847 vessels of the Velkari Imperial Armada cruised through the outer rim territories like hungry predators searching for prey. Admiral Thexvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Domination's Edge. His 4 yellow eyes scanned the tactical displays with satisfaction. This was supposed to be an easy mission. They would sweep through this sector, claim any valuable planets, and destroy anyone who dared to resist. The Velkari had done this countless times before. No species had ever been able to stop them. The Admiral's skin was a dark purple color, and small spikes ran along his arms and neck. He was tall, even by Velkari standards, and his presence commanded respect from every crew member on the bridge. Today felt like any other day of conquest. Sensor operator Krelthin sat at his station, watching the long-range scanners. The screens showed mostly empty space with a few asteroids and gas clouds. Nothing interesting, nothing dangerous. He yawned and stretched his 6 arms, thinking about his next meal break. Then something appeared on his screen. At first, Krelthin thought it might be a mistake. The sensors showed a single contact very far away. It was small, maybe the size of a frigate. The ship appeared to be drifting in space, with no engine activity. Probably just space junk or an abandoned mining vessel. But something felt wrong about it. Krelthin leaned closer to his screen and ran a deeper scan. The ship's hull design was unusual. It had smooth lines and strange angles that didn't match any known species in their database. The metal seemed different too, made of materials that reflected sensor beams in odd ways. "Admiral," Krelthin called out, his voice uncertain. "We have a contact on long-range sensors." Admiral Thexvar didn't look away from his tactical display. "What type of ship?" "Unknown, sir. It appears to be a single vessel, roughly frigate class. No engine activity detected." The Admiral finally turned toward his sensor operator. "Probably just debris. Mark it on the charts and continue scanning." But Krelthin couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. He ran the scan again, this time focusing on the ship's energy signature. Every species had a unique way of building their reactors and power systems. These signatures were like fingerprints that could identify who built any ship. The results made Krelthin's blood run cold. The energy signature was in the database. It had a match. But that match was impossible. It couldn't be real. "Sir," Krelthin said, his voice shaking now. "You need to see this." Admiral Thexvar walked over to the sensor station. His 4 eyes focused on the screen, and his expression changed from annoyance to confusion, then to something that looked like fear. The quantum resonance pattern was unmistakable. It matched only one entry in their military database, the entry that every Velkari officer hoped they would never see. "Human." "Run the scan again," Admiral Thexvar ordered, but his voice was barely a whisper. Krelthin's hands shook as he operated the controls. The scan took longer this time, using more powerful sensors to double-check the readings, but the results were the same. The energy signature was definitely human. "Impossible," Admiral Thexvar said. "The humans were supposed to be contained in their home sector. They shouldn't be here. They can't be here." Communications Officer Velkara suddenly sat up straight at her station. Her screens were lighting up with incoming messages from across the entire Armada. Every ship captain was trying to contact the flagship at the same time. "Admiral," Velkara said, "I'm receiving emergency transmissions from the entire fleet. Put them through," the Admiral ordered. The bridge filled with voices. Hundreds of ship captains all talking at once, their voices filled with panic and fear. Some were demanding immediate orders. Others were asking permission to withdraw from the area. A few were begging to know if the sensor readings were real. Admiral Thexvar raised one of his hands, and the communications went silent. Every captain in the fleet was waiting for his response. The bridge of the Domination's Edge was so quiet that the only sound was the humming of the ship's engines. "All ships, maintain current positions," Admiral Thexvar said. "Do not approach. The unknown contact. Repeat, do not approach." He closed the communication channel and turned to his senior staff. Every officer on the bridge was looking at him with fear in their eyes. They all knew what a human ship meant. "Sir," said Fleet Captain Mordex from his position at the tactical station. "What are your orders?" Admiral Thexvar didn't answer right away. He walked to the main viewing screen and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, hidden among the darkness, was a human warship. Even though it was just one ship against their entire armada, he felt afraid. The stories about humans were known throughout the galaxy. They were told in whispers in military academies and shared among officers during long space voyages. Stories about a species that fought with impossible bravery. Stories about ships that could take massive damage and keep fighting. Stories about tactics that made no sense but somehow always worked. The Battle of Kepler Station was the most famous. 3 human destroyers had held off an entire Zephyrian battle group for 6 hours. The humans fought until their ships were nothing but burning wreckage floating in space. They never surrendered. They never retreated. They died fighting. And in doing so, they saved thousands of civilian lives. Then there was the siege of Proxima. A single human cruiser had somehow destroyed 12 enemy battleships before finally being overwhelmed. The ship's captain had rammed his damaged vessel into the enemy flagship, destroying both ships in a massive explosion. Every military force in the galaxy had studied human tactics. They had tried to understand how such a young species could be so deadly in combat. The conclusion was always the same. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous, and absolutely refused to give up. "Sir," Velcara said quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting quantum distortions around the human ship." Admiral Thexvar felt his stomach drop. Quantum distortions meant only one thing. The human ship was powering up its faster-than-light drive. They might be preparing to jump away, or worse, they might be preparing to call for reinforcements. "How long until we can confirm their intentions?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. Human FTL technology is different from ours. Their quantum drives can activate much faster than our jump engines." Admiral Thexvar closed his 4 eyes and tried to think. He had 847 warships under his command. The human ship was outnumbered nearly 1,000 to 1. In any normal battle, those odds would guarantee victory, but nothing about fighting humans was normal. He opened his eyes and looked at his senior staff. Every officer was waiting for his decision. Some looked ready to fight. Others looked ready to run. "All ships, battle stations," Admiral Thexvar finally ordered. "Deploy the fleet in attack formation. If that human ship makes any aggressive moves, we will respond with overwhelming force." As the order went out across the Armada, 847 alien warships began moving into position. Weapon systems came online, shields were raised, fighters launched from carrier bays. But despite their massive numbers, every alien crew member felt the same cold fear in their hearts. They were about to face humanity, and everyone in the galaxy knew that humans never fought fair. They fought to win, no matter what the cost. In the distance, the human ship continued to drift silently through space, as if it didn't care about the massive fleet surrounding it. That silence was somehow more terrifying than any threat could have been. The bridge of the human warship Soul's Vengeance was dark and quiet. Red emergency lighting cast long shadows across the control stations. To any outside observer, the ship looked dead in space. No engine glow, no energy signatures, no signs of life. But this was exactly what Captain Daeho Kim wanted. Captain Kim stood in the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He was a tall man with short black hair and calm, intelligent eyes. His uniform was neat and pressed even after weeks in deep space. Everything about him suggested a man who was completely in control of the situation. "Status report," he said quietly. Lieutenant Commander Yujin Park looked up from her tactical station. She was the ship's weapons officer and one of the best in the Terran Defense Force. Her fingers moved quickly across her control panel as she checked their systems. "All weapons are online and ready, Captain. We're running silent protocols, so the enemy can't detect our active sensors. But passive scans show 847 hostile contacts maintaining position at 200,000 kilometers." Captain Kim nodded. "They've detected us, but they're keeping their distance. Good. That gives us time to prepare. Chief Engineer Bong-Soo Lee spoke from his position at the engineering station. He was an older man with graying hair and hands stained from years of working with machinery. All systems are running perfectly, Captain. The experimental quantum drives are ready for combat maneuvers. The new plasma lance batteries are fully charged and waiting for your orders. The Soul's Vengeance was one of the newest ships in the human fleet. It was built using technology that other species could barely understand. The quantum drives could accelerate the ship to incredible speeds almost instantly. The plasma lance weapons could punch through any known shield or armor. Most importantly, the ship was designed to be operated by a small crew of highly trained humans. Intelligence report, Captain Kim said, turning to Lieutenant So-Young Choi. Lieutenant Choi was young, but she had already proven herself to be one of the best intelligence officers in the fleet. She had been listening to enemy communications for the past hour, translating their alien language and analyzing their tactical positions. The enemy fleet is commanded by Admiral Thexvar aboard the flagship Domination's Edge, she reported. Their Velkari Imperial forces probably conducting a conquest sweep of this sector. From their communications, I can tell they're scared, Captain. Really scared. They know who we are. Captain Kim allowed himself a small smile. The reputation of humanity had spread far across the galaxy. Sometimes that reputation was more valuable than any weapon. Navigator Jinwoo Han was busy at his station, calculating possible attack routes and escape vectors. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless asked a direct question, but his tactical mind was brilliant. Captain, I have multiple approach vectors plotted. The enemy formation has several weak points we can exploit. Communications specialist Mira Jung was monitoring all radio frequencies, listening to the increasingly frantic conversations between enemy ships. She was fluent in over 20 alien languages, which made her invaluable for missions like this. Sir, she said, the enemy captains are arguing among themselves. Some want to attack immediately, others want to retreat. A few are suggesting they should try to negotiate. Weapons Officer Tae-min looked up from his console with a grin. He was the youngest member of the senior staff, but he was also the most aggressive. Captain, I have firing solutions locked on their entire formation. The plasma lances have the range and power to punch through their shields. We could take out their flagship and several heavy cruisers with our first salvo. Captain Kim walked to the main viewing screen. Through the transparent aluminum, he could see stars in the distance. He knew that somewhere among those stars was an alien armada that outnumbered his ship nearly 1,000 to 1. Any reasonable person would consider their situation hopeless. But Captain Kim was not just any person. He was human. Options, he said simply. Lieutenant Commander Park spoke first. We could try to slip away. Our quantum drives are faster than their engines. We could jump to hyperspace before they could stop us. We could also call for reinforcements, Navigator Han suggested. The Busan's Pride is only 3 days away. Chief Engineer Lee shook his head. If we run, they'll just continue their conquest sweep. How many innocent people will die while we're waiting for backup? Lieutenant Choi nodded in agreement. My analysis of their communication suggests they're planning to attack several colony worlds in this sector. Millions of lives are at stake. Captain, Kim listened to his crew debate their options. Each suggestion was reasonable. Each had merit. But deep down he knew there was really only one choice. It was the choice that humans always made when faced with overwhelming odds. They would fight. Specialist Jung, he said, send a tight beam message to Fleet Command. Inform them of our situation and request that Admiral Hee-Wan Kang be notified. Personally, Mira Jung's fingers flew across her console. Message sent, Captain. Estimated time for a response is 47 minutes. Captain Kim nodded. Admiral Kang had been his mentor when he was a young officer. She was one of the most respected commanders in the Terran Defense Force, and she understood better than anyone what it meant to be outnumbered but not outfought. Sir, Weapons Officer O said, should I begin targeting their command ships? Not yet. We wait for Fleet Command's response. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's life support systems. Every member of the crew understood what they were facing. They were alone. outnumbered and thousands of light years from home. But they were also human, and that meant something special in this galaxy. Humans had earned their reputation through blood and sacrifice. At the Battle of Wolf 359, Captain Sarah Chen had held off an entire Zephyrian fleet with just 2 destroyers. At the Siege of Proxima, Commander David Martinez had rammed his crippled ship into an enemy dreadnought, saving 1 million colonists. At Kepler Station, 3 human captains had fought to the death to protect civilian evacuation ships. Every human ship carried the memory of those heroes. Every human crew member knew that they were part of something larger than themselves. They were the descendants of warriors and explorers, of people who had looked up at the stars and decided to claim them. "Incoming message from Fleet Command," Specialist Young announced. "Put it through," Captain Kim ordered. The main screen flickered and the image of Admiral Haiwan Kang appeared. She was an older woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. But when she looked at Captain Kim, those eyes were filled with confidence and determination. "Captain Kim," she said, "I understand you've encountered a rather large enemy force." 47 ships, Admiral. Velkari Imperial forces conducting a conquest sweep. Admiral Kang was quiet for a moment, considering the situation. "Captain, you are authorized to demonstrate why humanity has earned its reputation in this galaxy. Show them what happens when they threaten human space." "Understood, Admiral." "And Captain," Admiral Kang added, her voice softening slightly, "bring your crew home, safely." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence once again. Captain Kim turned to face his senior staff. Every person on that bridge was looking at him with complete trust and confidence. They believed in him, just as he believed in them. "All stations prepare for combat," he ordered. "We're going to show the Velkari why the galaxy fears humanity." Lieutenant Commander Park's hands moved across her tactical controls. "Weapon systems armed and ready, Captain." Chief Engineer Lee checked his displays. "Quantum drive spinning up, all systems operating at peak efficiency." Navigator Han plotted their attack course. "Best approach vector calculated and locked in, sir." Intelligence Officer Choi continued monitoring enemy communications. "The enemy is still debating their response, Captain. They're not sure what we're planning." Communications Specialist Jung prepared her equipment. "All frequencies monitored and ready, sir." Weapons Officer O grinned as he powered up the plasma lance batteries. "Ready to show them what human engineering can do, Captain." Captain Kim looked out at the stars one more time. In a few minutes, they would begin a battle that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. The odds were impossible. The enemy was numerous and powerful. Any rational analysis would suggest that the Soul's vengeance had no chance of survival. But rationality had never been humanity's strongest trait. What made humans special was their ability to look at impossible odds and decide to fight anyway. What made them dangerous was their refusal to give up, no matter what the cost. "All hands. This is the captain," Kim said over the ship's intercom. "We are about to engage a superior enemy force. We are outnumbered, but we are not outmatched. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every human colony in this sector. We fight to show the galaxy that humanity will never back down from a challenge." He paused, letting his words sink in throughout the ship. "Today we remind the universe why they should fear us." Admiral Thexvar stood in his private command chamber, staring at classified files that glowed on his personal display screen. These were not the kinds of reports that ordinary officers were allowed to see. These were the secret intelligence, files on human military capabilities. And reading them made his 4 stomachs feel sick with worry. The reports had been gathered over many years from various battles across the galaxy. Each one told the same terrifying story about how humans fought wars. They were not like other species. They did not follow the normal rules of combat. They were unpredictable, dangerous, and completely insane. The first file showed footage from the Battle of Kepler Station. Admiral Thexvar had seen this recording many times, but it never failed to frighten him. 3 human destroyers faced off against an entire Zephyrian battle group of 47 ships. Any sane species would have surrendered immediately or tried to escape. But the humans did something else entirely. They attacked. For 6 hours, those 3 small human ships danced through space like deadly wasps, striking at the much larger, alien vessels with weapons that seemed impossibly powerful. When their shields failed, they kept fighting. When their engines were damaged, they kept fighting. When their hulls were breached and atmosphere was bleeding into space, they kept fighting. The human ships fought until they were nothing but burning wreckage floating among the stars. But in those 6 hours, they destroyed 18 enemy ships and damaged countless others. More importantly, they gave thousands of civilian transports time to escape to safety. Not one human surrendered. Not one tried to flee. They died fighting, and they saved lives by doing it. Admiral Thexavar switched to another file. This one showed the siege of Proxima, where a single human cruiser had somehow destroyed 12 enemy battleships before finally being overwhelmed. The ship's captain, Commander David Martinez, had rammed his damaged vessel into the enemy flagship when his weapons failed. The explosion lit up space for millions of kilometers. Both ships were completely destroyed. But Martinez had saved a colony of 1 million people, and he had shown the galaxy that humans would sacrifice everything to protect innocent lives. There were dozens of other reports, each one more disturbing than the last. Humans who fought with broken bones and bleeding wounds, ships that continued firing even after their bridges were destroyed, captains who chose death over surrender again and again and again. A soft chime indicated that someone was requesting permission to enter his chamber. "Come," Admiral Thexvar said. Fleet Captain Mordex entered the room. He was Admiral Thexvar's most trusted officer, a veteran of many successful campaigns. But today, his purple skin looked pale with worry. "Admiral," Mordex said, "I request permission to withdraw my squadron from the engagement zone." Admiral Thexvar closed the classified files and turned to face his subordinate. "Explain." "Sir, I have been reviewing our intelligence on human military capabilities. My analysis suggests that a single human warship can disable dozens of our vessels. Their plasma weaponry alone can destroy our ships with one hit. Their quantum drives make them faster than anything we have. And their crews—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Their crews fight like demons, sir. They never give up." Admiral Thexvar understood Mordex's fear. He felt it himself. But retreating from a single enemy ship would destroy the reputation of the Velkari Imperial Navy. Word would spread throughout the galaxy that humans had scared off nearly 1,000 alien warships without firing a shot. "We cannot withdraw," Admiral Thexvar said. "We outnumber them 1,000 to 1. Numbers don't seem to matter when fighting humans, sir. At the Battle of Arcturus, 5 human frigates defeated a Krellian dreadnought fleet. At the Vega incident, 2 human cruisers held off an entire invasion force for 3 days. Mordex walked to the viewing port and stared out at the distant stars. "Sir, there are stories that human ships can take impossible amounts of damage and keep fighting. Stories that their crews can survive in conditions that would kill any other species. Some reports claim that humans actually become more dangerous when they're wounded or desperate." Admiral Thexvar had read those same reports. There were accounts of human soldiers continuing to fight with injuries that should have been fatal. Stories of human ships operating with life support systems completely destroyed, their crews somehow surviving in the vacuum of space long enough to fire one last weapon salvo. The most disturbing reports came from psychological analysis of captured human prisoners. The alien scientists who studied them concluded that humans had an unusual mental structure that actually made them more effective in combat when facing overwhelming odds. They seemed to draw strength from desperate situations. "Sir," Mordex continued, "long-range sensors are showing quantum distortions around the human ship. Their FTL drives are powering up." This was the worst possible news. If the human ship could call for reinforcements, the situation would become completely hopeless. Admiral Thexvar had read reports about human fleet tactics. They worked together like a pack of predators, supporting each other with coordinated attacks that could destroy enemy formations 10 times their size. "How long until we can determine their intentions?" Admiral Thexavar asked. "Unknown, sir. Human. Quantum drive technology is more advanced than ours. They can jump to faster-than-light speeds much quicker than our ships. Admiral Thexvar activated his communication system and connected to the bridge of his flagship. Sensor control. Report on the quantum distortions around the human vessel. Sir, the distortions are increasing in intensity. We believe they are either preparing to flee the area or preparing to summon additional ships. Both possibilities were bad. If the humans fled, they would report the location of the Velkari Armada to their military command. Other human ships would come hunting for them. If the humans called for backup, the battle would become even more difficult. But there was a third possibility that Admiral Thexvar didn't want to consider. The quantum distortions might mean that the human ship was preparing to attack. Their advanced drives would allow them to move at incredible speeds, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Fleet Captain Mordex, Admiral, Thexvar said, "Return to your ship and prepare your squadron for battle. If the humans want a fight, we will give them one." Mordex saluted and left the chamber, but Admiral Thexvar could see the fear in his eyes. Alone again, Admiral Thexvar returned to the intelligence files. There was one report that he had avoided reading, because it frightened him more than all the others. It was a psychological profile of human behavior in combat, prepared by the galaxy's leading experts in xenopsychology. The report concluded that humans were not just willing to die in combat, they were willing to sacrifice themselves to hurt their enemies. This made them incredibly dangerous, because they would take risks that no other species would even consider. The report gave an example from the Battle of Wolf 359. A human captain named Sarah Chen had ordered her crew to abandon ship, then piloted her damaged destroyer directly into the center of an enemy formation. The explosion destroyed her ship and 5 enemy vessels, but it also created a gap in the alien battle line that allowed the rest of the human fleet to escape. Captain Chen could have tried to flee with her crew. She could have surrendered and lived to fight another day. Instead, she chose to die in order to save other human lives. This was not the behavior of a rational military officer. This was the behavior of a fanatic. But the most disturbing part of the report was its conclusion. This type of behavior was not unusual among humans. It was normal. Human military doctrine actually encouraged officers to sacrifice themselves if it would help their mission succeed. What kind of species raised warriors who were eager to die for their cause? Admiral Thexvar's communication system chimed with an urgent message from the bridge. "Admiral, we are detecting massive energy buildups across the human ship. All weapon systems appear to be coming online." This was it. The humans were preparing to attack. Admiral Thexvar took one last look at the intelligence files, then closed them forever. Whatever happened in the next few hours would either prove these reports wrong, or it would confirm humanity's reputation as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Thexvar. The human vessel is preparing to engage. All units will deploy in defensive formation Alpha 7. Do not underestimate the enemy. Human tactics are unpredictable and deadly. Fight with honor. And remember that the glory of the Velkari Empire depends on your courage today." As he finished speaking, Admiral Thexvar realized that his hands were shaking. In 40 years of military service, he had never felt this kind of fear before a battle. But then again, he had never faced humans before. Somewhere in the darkness of space, a single human warship was preparing to attack nearly 1,000 alien vessels. The odds were impossible. The situation was hopeless. Any rational analysis would suggest that the humans had no chance of victory. But Admiral Thexvar had read the intelligence reports. He knew that humans didn't care about rational analysis. They cared about fighting for what they believed in, even if it killed them, and that made them the most terrifying enemy in the galaxy. Captain Dae-ho Kim took one last look at his crew, then gave the order that would change everything. "All stations, execute combat protocols. Take us to war." The Soul's vengeance erupted to life like a sleeping dragon awakening. The quantum drives flared with brilliant blue energy, and the ship accelerated from 0 to combat speed in less than 3 seconds. What had looked like a dead piece of space junk suddenly became a deadly predator racing toward its prey. On the bridge, Every crew member was focused on their tasks. Red combat lighting bathed everything in an eerie glow. Warning alarms had been silenced. The crew didn't need distractions now. Lieutenant Commander Eugene Park watched her tactical displays as the ship closed the distance to the enemy formation. "Captain, enemy vessels are opening fire. Massive. Energy signatures detected. They're throwing everything they have at us." Through the main viewing screen, space lit up with deadly beauty. Hundreds of energy beams, missile trails, and kinetic projectiles filled the void between the human ship and the alien armada. The amount of firepower being directed at them should have been enough to destroy a dozen ships, but the Soul's vengeance moved like it was dancing. Navigator Jinwoo Han had programmed an evasive pattern that used the ship's quantum drives to their fullest potential. The human vessel twisted and turned through space, dodging between energy beams with impossible precision. Missiles exploded harmlessly where the ship had been just moments before. Hull temperature rising from near misses, Chief Engineer Bong-Soo Lee reported, his hands flying across his control panel. "But we're still well within safe limits. The new armor plating is holding up perfectly." Captain Kim watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The alien formation was exactly where he had expected it to be. They were firing in patterns. That made sense for fighting other alien species. But humans had developed tactics that no other species understood. "Weapons Officer O," Captain Kim said calmly, "you may begin the demonstration." Taemin O grinned as his fingers moved across the plasma lance controls. "Aye, sir, targeting their command ships first." The Soul's vengeance had been built around its main weapons, 4 plasma lance batteries that could punch through any known shield or armor. The technology was based on research into stellar cores, creating focused beams of energy that burned as hot as the surface of a star. The first lance fired. The beam crossed the distance between the human ship and the alien flagship in a fraction of a second. It struck the Domination's edge directly in the center of its command section. The massive alien ship's shields flared and overloaded instantly. Then the plasma beam burned through the hull armor like it was paper. On the alien flagship's bridge, Admiral Thexvar was thrown to the floor as his ship shuddered under the impact. Emergency lights flickered on as main power systems failed. The smell of burning electronics filled the air. "Damage report," Admiral Thexvar shouted. "Sir, we've lost primary shields and main engines," his damage control officer replied. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We're venting atmosphere and coolant." The Admiral pulled himself to his feet and stared at the tactical display, in disbelief. A single shot from the human ship had crippled his flagship. How was that possible? But the humans were not finished. The Soul's vengeance had already moved to a new position, using its quantum drives to appear behind a group of heavy cruisers. Weapons Officer O fired again, this time targeting 2 ships simultaneously. Both alien cruisers exploded in brilliant fireballs. The plasma lances had hit their reactor cores, causing massive chain reactions that lit up space for millions of kilometers. Communications specialist Mira Jung monitored the enemy radio traffic. As panic spread through the alien fleet, "Captain, they're trying to coordinate a response, but their command structure is breaking down. Many ships are requesting permission to retreat." Intelligence Officer So Young Choi analyzed the enemy formations. "Sir, they're trying to surround us, but they're not accounting for our speed advantage. Their tactical thinking is based on fighting slower ships." Captain Kim nodded. This was exactly what human military doctrine had prepared them for. Other species thought of space combat as a chess match, careful positioning, and calculated moves. Humans treated it like a knife fight, fast, brutal, and decided by whoever was willing to take the most risks. "Navigator Han, execute pattern Delta 7. "Aye, sir." Taking us through the center of their formation. The Soul's vengeance dove directly toward the heart of the alien armada. Enemy ships fired from all directions, creating a deadly crossfire that should have been impossible to survive. But the human ship slipped between the energy beams like a ghost, its quantum drives allowing it to change direction faster than the alien weapons could track. Chief Engineer Lee watched his displays with professional pride. "Captain, hull integrity. is at 78% and holding. Their weapons are powerful, but they're designed for fighting ships that move predictably. We're taking some hits, but nothing critical. The human ship emerged from the center of the alien formation and immediately fired its plasma lances again. This time, Weapons Officer O targeted the enemy's support vessels, supply ships and repair vessels that kept the Armada functioning. 3 more alien ships died in brilliant explosions. "Sir," Communications Specialist Young reported, "I'm intercepting panicked transmissions from across their fleet. Several squadrons are requesting permission to withdraw. Their discipline is breaking down." But Captain Kim was not interested in letting them escape. He had read the intelligence reports about what the Velkari Empire did to conquered worlds. Millions of innocent people had died under their rule. This armada had come to this sector to spread death and slavery. Today, that would end. "All hands, this is the captain," Kim announced over the ship's intercom. "We have engaged the enemy and drawn first blood. But this fight is far from over. Remember why we're here. Remember what's at stake. Show them why the galaxy fears humanity." The battle raged on for another hour. The Soul's vengeance moved through the alien formation like a deadly shark, striking at targets of opportunity and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The ship's quantum drives allowed it to appear anywhere in the battle space within seconds, making it impossible for the aliens to predict where it would strike next. Weapons Officer O fired the plasma lances again and again, each shot carefully aimed to cause maximum damage. Sometimes he targeted enemy weapon systems, leaving alien ships helpless but alive. Sometimes he went for reactor cores, turning enemy vessels into expanding fireballs. And sometimes he aimed for engine systems, leaving alien ships dead in space. Navigator. Han pushed the quantum drives to their limits, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible for any other ship. The Soul's vengeance twisted and turned through space, always staying one step ahead of the enemy weapons. Chief Engineer Lee kept all systems running at peak efficiency, even as the ship took hits from enemy weapons. The hull armor held against most attacks, and the few shots that penetrated were quickly sealed by damage control teams. Intelligence Officer Choi continued analyzing enemy communications and tactics, providing updates on their changing strategies. Communications Specialist Jung monitored all frequencies, keeping track of which enemy ships were still functional and which were requesting assistance. And through it all, Captain Kim stood calmly in the center of the bridge, directing his crew with quiet confidence. He had trained for this kind of battle his entire career. Every human officer had. They knew that someday they would face impossible odds, and they had prepared accordingly. After 3 hours of combat, the tactical display showed the results of the battle. The Soul's vengeance had systematically destroyed or disabled nearly half of the alien armada. 412 enemy ships were either destroyed, crippled, or fleeing the battle area. The human ship bore the scars of battle. Hull plates were scorched and dented, several weapon systems were offline, and atmosphere was venting from minor hull breaches. But she was still fighting, still moving, still deadly. Admiral Thexvar, commanding from his crippled flagship, finally faced the truth that he had been trying to avoid. His massive armada had been defeated by a single human ship. The legends were not just stories, they were warnings that he should have listened to. With shaking hands, he activated his communication system and sent a message on all frequencies. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Thexvar of the Velkari Imperial Navy. We surrender." The words tasted like poison in his mouth. In 40 years of military service, he had never surrendered to anyone, but he had never faced humans before. On the bridge of the Soul's vengeance, Communications Specialist Jung looked up from her station. "Captain, we're receiving a surrender request from the enemy flagship." Captain Kim looked out at the debris field that had once been a proud alien armada. Hundreds of ships were either destroyed or drifting helplessly in space. The survivors were fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. But he was not finished yet. There was still a message to send. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Soul's vengeance. looking out at the aftermath of the battle. Space around them was filled with the wreckage of alien warships. Pieces of metal and debris drifted slowly in all directions. Emergency. Lights blinked on damaged hulls. Escape pods fled toward the surviving enemy ships. 3 hours ago, his ship had faced 847 enemy vessels. Now, only 289 alien ships remained functional, and most of those were trying to escape the battle zone as quickly as possible. The mighty Velkari Armada had been broken by a single human warship. Status report, Captain Kim said calmly. Lieutenant Commander Yu Jin Park checked her tactical displays. Sir, we have 412 confirmed enemy casualties, destroyed or completely disabled. The remaining 289 ships are withdrawing from the engagement zone. Several are sending surrender signals. Chief Engineer Bong Su Lee wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied his damage control screens. Captain, we've taken significant damage, but all critical systems are still operational. Hull integrity is at 63%. We've lost 2 of the plasma lance batteries and our primary sensor array, but the quantum drives are still running perfectly. The Soul's Vengeance had fought against impossible odds and survived. The ship was scarred and battered, but she was still intact. More importantly, her crew was still alive and ready to fight if necessary. Communications specialist Mira Jung looked up from her station with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Captain, I'm receiving surrender requests from 17 different enemy ships. The rest are fleeing as fast as they can. Captain Kim nodded, but his expression remained serious. The battle was over, but his mission was not complete. What happened here today needed to be remembered throughout the galaxy. The message had to be clear and unmistakable. Specialist Young, he said, open a communication channel on all frequencies. Maximum power. I want every ship in this system to receive this transmission, and I want it broadcast far enough that other species will pick it up as well. Mira Young's fingers moved across her control panel. Channel open, sir. Broadcasting on all frequencies across multiple star systems. Captain Kim walked to the center of the bridge, where the communication pickup would give the clearest signal. Behind him, his crew continued working at their stations, proud, professional, and victorious. The image they presented would be seen across the galaxy. This is Captain Dae-ho Kim of the Terran Defense Force vessel Soul's Vengeance, he began, his voice carrying clearly across space. Today, a single human warship engaged and defeated a Velkari armada of nearly 1,000 ships. We did not seek this conflict, but we finished it. He paused, letting his words sink in. Throughout the galaxy, alien military commanders would be recording this message, analyzing every word. The Velkari Empire came to this sector to conquer and destroy. They came believing that their numbers would guarantee victory. They were wrong. Numbers mean nothing when you face humanity. Technology means nothing when you face human determination. Size means nothing when you face human courage. On the bridge of the crippled Velkari flagship, Admiral Thexavar listened to the human captain's words with growing dread. This message would be heard throughout the galaxy. Every species would know that his mighty armada had been defeated by a single enemy ship. We fought today not for conquest but for protection, Captain Kim continued. We fought to defend the innocent colonies that would have fallen under Velkari rule. We fought to show the galaxy that humanity will never allow the strong to prey upon the weak. Navigation Officer Jin Woo Han quietly plotted their course home while listening to his captain's speech. Intelligence Officer So Young Choi continued, monitoring alien communication channels, watching as news of the battle spread to other star systems. Weapons Officer Tae Min-oh kept his remaining plasma lances powered and ready, just in case any of the fleeing aliens decided to make one last attack. Let this be a lesson to any species that threatens human space or human allies, Captain Kim said, his voice growing harder. We are not the largest military force in the galaxy. We are not the oldest civilization. We are not the most advanced technology, but we are the most determined. We are the most willing to sacrifice. We are the most dangerous when cornered. The words echoed across space, reaching alien worlds where military leaders were already revising their strategic plans. The human reputation had been proven once again, and that reputation was more valuable than any weapon. To the survivors of the Velkari Armada, You will return to your empire and tell them what happened here. You will explain how 847 warships were defeated by a single human crew. You will make sure they understand that this was not luck, not accident, not some kind of trick. This was humanity showing what we can do when we choose to fight. Admiral Thexvar closed his 4 eyes in shame. His military career was over. His reputation was destroyed. But worse than that, he would have to return home and explain how the pride of the Velkari fleet had been humiliated by a single enemy ship. This demonstration of human resolve is now concluded, Captain Kim said. We return to our space in peace, but we remain ready for war. Remember this day. Remember what happens to those who threaten humanity. Remember why the galaxy should fear us, but more importantly, remember why they should respect us. The transmission ended, leaving space silent except for the background radiation of distant stars. Communications. Specialist Jung turned to her. Captain. Sir, the message has been received and confirmed by monitoring stations in at least 15 different star systems. It will be broadcast throughout the galaxy within hours. Captain Kim nodded with satisfaction. The battle had been won, but the real victory was the message they had sent. Every alien military force in the galaxy would now know exactly what happened when humans were pushed too far. Navigator Han, set course for Proxima Station. Best possible speed. Aye, sir. Course laid in. Estimated time to arrival is 6 days. At current engine capacity. Chief Engineer Lee looked up from his damage control displays. Captain, repair teams are already working on the hull damage. We should be able to restore most systems during the journey home. The crew performed magnificently under fire. That was an understatement. Every member of the crew had done their job perfectly, even while enemy weapons were exploding all around them. They had faced impossible odds with calm professionalism and deadly skill. Signal Proxima Station and inform them of our situation, Captain Kim ordered. Also send a full battle report to Fleet Command. Make sure Admiral Kang receives a personal copy. Lieutenant Commander Park secured her weapon systems and began analyzing the battle data. Sir, for the record, we expended 60% of our plasma lance charges and took structural damage to 40% of our hull sections, but we accomplished our mission objectives with 0 casualties among our crew. 0 casualties. Against nearly 1,000 enemy ships, the Soul's Vengeance had not lost a single crew member. That fact alone would become part of the legend that would spread throughout the galaxy. Intelligence Officer Choi continued monitoring alien communications as news of the battle spread. Captain, I'm detecting increased military communications traffic from at least a dozen different species. They're all discussing what happened here today. What's the general reaction? Captain Kim asked. Fear, sir, and respect. Several alien military commands are already issuing orders to avoid contact with human ships unless absolutely necessary. That was exactly the reaction Captain Kim had hoped for. The battle had not just been about defeating the Velkari Armada, it had been about sending a message to the entire galaxy about what humanity was capable of when pushed to fight. Specialist Jung. Send one final transmission to Earth Command, Captain Kim ordered. Message text. Mission accomplished. Human space is secure. The galaxy remembers why they should fear us. As the quantum drives powered up for the journey home, Captain Kim took one last look at the debris field around them. Hundreds of alien warships had been destroyed or crippled. The survivors were fleeing toward their home space carrying news of their defeat. But the real victory was not measured in destroyed ships or alien casualties. The real victory was measured in the planets that would not be conquered, the colonies that would not be enslaved, and the innocent lives that would not be lost to Velkari brutality. The Soul's Vengeance jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving behind a debris field and a legend that would echo across the galaxy for generations. In command centers throughout known space, alien military leaders were already updating their tactical databases with a new priority warning. Avoid engagement with human forces at all costs. On Earth, Admiral Hai Wan Kang received Captain Kim's final transmission and smiled with pride. Once again, humanity had proven that they could not be conquered, could not be defeated, and would never surrender. The reputation that had been built through blood and sacrifice at battles like Kepler Station, Wolf 359, and Proxima had been reinforced once more. And throughout the galaxy, alien species looked up at the stars and remembered why humanity had earned its place among the most feared and respected civilizations in the universe. They remembered that humans were not just warriors, they were protectors, willing to fight impossible odds to defend what they believed in. The message had been sent. The galaxy would remember.